The cargo bay of the Stellar Wanderer hummed with the usual mix of alien voices, mechanical sounds, and the distant throb of engines pushing through hyperspace. Marcus Chin sat alone in the corner, his dark eyes fixed on the datapad in his hands. The light from the screen cast shadows across his weathered face, highlighting scars that told stories he never shared. Around him, the ship's crew went about their business. The Stellar Wanderer was a trade vessel, one of thousands that moved goods between the Outer Rim colonies and the core worlds. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid well enough for those willing to risk the dangers of deep space. "Look at the human," whispered Zektar, a tall reptilian Vorthak whose scales shimmered green under the artificial lights. His forked tongue flicked out as he spoke to his companion, a bulky Gornish with 4 arms and skin like granite. 3 months on this ship, and I've never heard him say more than 5 words at once. Krell, the Gornish, rumbled with amusement. His massive frame dwarfed even the largest humans, and his voice sounded like grinding stone. Humans are weak creatures. This one probably knows his place among real warriors. The conversation wasn't as quiet as they thought. Several other crew members had gathered around, including Captain Vexani, a proud Zelfarian with purple skin and silver markings that denoted her high rank in their military caste system. Her 6 eyes studied Marcus with obvious disdain. "I still don't understand why Command insisted we take him," she said, her melodic voice carrying easily across the bay. "Humans have no special skills. They're not particularly strong, fast, or intelligent. They don't have natural weapons or armor. What possible use could one be on a mission like this?" Dr. Sileth, the ship's medical officer and a member of the peaceful ethereal race, floated nearby. Her translucent form glowed softly as she spoke in her gentle, musical tone. "Perhaps we shouldn't judge so quickly. Every species has survived for reasons. Humans must have something that helped them reach the stars." This earned scoffs from several crew members. Zektar's tail lashed with amusement. "Yes, they have something special. They have luck. Pure dumb luck that they haven't destroyed themselves yet with their primitive technology and barbaric nature." Marcus continued reading his datapad, seemingly oblivious to the conversation. His fingers moved across the screen with practiced efficiency, scrolling through star charts and cargo manifests. Those who looked closely might have noticed that his reading pattern seemed unusually thorough. As if he was memorizing every detail, the ship's communication system crackled to life. "All crew to stations. We're approaching the Nexus station. Prepare for standard docking procedures." The Nexus station was a massive trade hub built into an asteroid field at the edge of contested space. It was neutral territory where representatives from dozens of different species came to conduct business. It was also dangerous territory where pirates, smugglers, and worse gathered in the shadows between the legitimate trade dot as the crew prepared for docking. Marcus finally looked up from his datapad. He watched the bustling activity around him with calm, analytical eyes. When a heavy crate shifted loose from its moorings, threatening to crush a smaller Kixian crew member, Marcus moved. His reaction was swift and precise. In one fluid motion, he caught the falling crate and guided it safely to the deck. The Kixian, whose butterfly-like wings had been pinned under another container, chirped grateful thanks in his musical language. "Lucky reflexes," muttered Krell. Though his tone held a note of grudging respect, Captain Vexani's orders rang out sharp and clear. "We'll be at Nexus for 6 hours. Standard shore leave rotation? Remember, we're carrying valuable cargo, so security protocols remain in effect. Zektar, take the first watch. Krell, you're on cargo duty." She paused, her 6 eyes fixing on Marcus. "Human, you'll remain with the ship. We can't risk having dead weight wandering around a place like Nexus Station." Marcus nodded once, a simple acknowledgement that revealed nothing of his thoughts. As the crew began filing out, he returned his attention to his datapad. But now, instead of cargo manifests, he was reading something else entirely. Files marked with high-security clearances. Communication intercepts. Intelligence reports dot, and most interesting of all, a list of names and photos. Pirates and criminals who frequented Nexus Station. Marcus studied each face carefully. His expression never changing, Dr. Silith was the last to leave, her ethereal form pausing near Marcus. "You don't have to stay here, you know." The captain's orders were harsh, but shore leave is a right for all crew members. Marcus looked up at her, and for the first time his voice carried more than just polite acknowledgement. "Thank you, Doctor. But I have work to do." His tone was quiet, respectful, but there was something underneath it that made Dr. Silith pause. Something that reminded her of deep water. Still on the surface, but with powerful currents beneath. After she left, Marcus was alone in the cargo bay. He set down his datapad and opened a secured case that had traveled with him from the moment he joined the crew. Inside, wrapped in plain cloth, were items that seemed unremarkable to casual observation. A few tools, some personal effects, and what appeared to be an old, well-maintained knife, but Marcus handled each item with the care of someone who knew their true worth. The tools were precision instruments. The personal effects were advanced communication devices. And the knife was something far more deadly than its simple appearance suggested. He activated one of the communication devices, speaking in low, measured tones. "Control, this is Ghost. I'm in position at Nexus Station. The package is secure, and I've identified several potential complications from the target list." A crackling voice responded. "Copy, Ghost. Remember, your cover is essential. The crew cannot know who you are or why you're really there. The cargo they think they're carrying is just the surface layer." Marcus allowed himself a slight smile. "Understood. The crew believes I'm just another passenger. A weak, unremarkable human along for the ride." "Good, maintain that fiction. If your identity as Reaper becomes known before the mission is complete, everything we've worked for will be compromised." The communication ended, and Marcus carefully packed away the device. He returned to his datapad, once again appearing to be nothing more than a quiet crew member reading routine ship information. But now, in the depths of Nexus Station, events were already in motion that would test every assumption the crew had made about their silent human companion. Pirates were gathering. Plans were being made. And somewhere in the shadows, enemies of humanity were preparing to make a move that would threaten far more than just one trade ship. Marcus Chon, known to his enemies by a very different name, settled in to wait. He had learned long ago that patience was often the most deadly weapon of all. 2 hours into shore leave, the first sign of trouble came through the ship's communication system. It wasn't an official distress call, just static-filled chatter from the stations. Security frequency that Marcus had quietly tapped into using his hidden equipment. Multiple unknown vessels approaching. "Vector 7, crackled a nervous voice. "They're not responding to identification requests." Marcus set down his datapad and moved to one of the cargo bay's small viewports. Nexus Station sprawled before him, a massive structure of metal and lights carved into the asteroid. Docking bays lined its surface like glowing wounds, and small ships moved between them like insects around a hive, but Marcus wasn't looking at the station. His attention was fixed on the dark space beyond, where running lights were beginning to appear. Too many lights moving in formation? Pirates didn't usually announce themselves so boldly unless they were confident of victory. His hidden communicator buzzed softly. "Ghost, we're reading multiple hostile contacts. What's your status?" "Still secure," Marcus replied quietly. "But I think our timeline just moved up." "Negative. Maintain your cover. The operation isn't scheduled to begin for another 4 hours." Marcus watched the approaching ships and made a quick count. 15 vessels, ranging from small fighters to medium cruisers. Far too many for Nexus Station's limited security forces to handle. And if his intelligence was correct, this wasn't a random pirate raid. "Control, I'm seeing a coordinated assault force. This isn't about the station's cargo. Someone knows about our real mission?" There was a long pause before the voice returned, tight with worry. "How certain are you?" "Certain enough." Marcus was already moving, securing his equipment and checking his weapons. "I count at least 3 ships that match the profiles we've been tracking. The Bloodhawk Syndicate is here, and they've brought friends." The Bloodhawk Syndicate wasn't just another pirate organization. They were a multi-species criminal empire that specialized in high-value targets and had connections throughout the galaxy's underworld. If they were here, it meant someone had leaked information about the Stellar Wanderer's true cargo. Ghost, if your cover is blown, abort the mission. We can't afford to lose you. Negative, Marcus replied, his voice calm but firm. Too much depends on this. I'll adapt. He cut the communication and returned to his position near the viewport. The approaching ships were close enough now that he could see their weapons charging. Soon the shooting would start, and the crew of the Stellar Wanderer would find themselves in a fight they weren't prepared for. The ship's general alarm began blaring. Captain Vexania's voice echoed through the corridors, sharp with urgency. All crew, return to ship immediately. We have incoming hostiles. Prepare for emergency departure. Marcus heard running footsteps in the corridors as crew members raced back from their shore leave. Through the communication chatter, he could hear the growing panic on Nexus Station. As the approaching pirate fleet came within weapons range, the first crew member to reach the cargo bay was Zektar, his scales flushed dark with stress. He spotted Marcus and snarled with frustration. Still sitting here reading while real danger approaches? Typical human cowardice. Before Marcus could respond, the ship shuddered as the first energy blast struck Nexus Station's outer defenses. The lights flickered and emergency klaxons began wailing from the station's speakers. Krell arrived next, his massive frame filling the doorway. Captain wants all cargo secured for immediate departure. We need to get out of here before those pirates decide we're worth their attention. More crew members poured into the bay, their earlier arrogance replaced by obvious fear. The reality of facing an organized pirate assault was sobering even for species that prided themselves on their warrior traditions. Captain Vexania's voice cut through the noise. Engineering, I need full power to engines in 2 minutes. Navigation, plot a course to the nearest patrol sector. Everyone else, prepare for combat maneuvers. She entered the cargo bay at a run, her 6 eyes wide with stress. Why aren't we disconnected from the station yet? Docking clamps are jammed, Krell reported. Something's wrong with the release mechanism. Through the viewport, Marcus watched the battle unfolding around Nexus Station. The station's defense platforms were putting up a fight, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. More troubling, several of the pirate ships were moving with purpose towards specific docking areas. They knew exactly where to look. Captain, Marcus said quietly. Speaking up for the first time during the crisis, Vexani turned to him with barely concealed irritation. What? The docking clamps aren't malfunctioning. They've been sabotaged. Someone wants to make sure we don't leave. How could you possibly know that? Zektar hissed. Marcus was already moving toward the maintenance panel near the docking port. Because I've seen this before. External override, probably activated by someone with station access codes. His fingers moved over the control panel with practiced efficiency, far more skill than any ordinary cargo handler should possess. Within seconds, he had the diagnostic display showing the exact nature of the sabotage. There, he said, pointing to a series of corrupted command codes. Someone with high-level access locked us in place about 10 minutes ago. Right when those ships appeared on sensors, Captain Vexani stared at the display, her warrior training finally overriding her prejudices. Can you fix it? Yes, but it will take time and we'll be sitting ducks while I work. As if to emphasize his point, another volley of energy blasts rocked the station. This time, some of the shots were aimed at docked ships. A Zeltharian freighter 3 bays over erupted in flames, its crew evacuating in escape pods. Do it, Vexani ordered. Marcus nodded and began working. His movements were swift and sure, bypassing security protocols with the ease of someone intimately familiar with such systems. Too familiar, perhaps, for someone who was supposed to be a simple passenger. Dr. Silith noticed first. Her ethereal form floated closer, her gentle voice filled with curiosity. Where did you learn to do this? Those are military-grade security systems. I've traveled extensively, Marcus replied without looking up from his work. You pick things up? But Zektar was watching more closely now, his reptilian eyes sharp with suspicion. No ordinary human knows those override codes. Who are you really? Marcus paused in his work for just a moment. Around him, the crew was watching with new attention. The masks were beginning to slip, and soon he would have to make a choice between maintaining his cover and keeping them all alive. Right now, he said calmly. Returning to the control panel, I'm the person trying to save all our lives. The ship shuddered again as more weapons fire struck the station. Through the viewport, Marcus could see boarding pods launching from the pirate vessels, heading for specific docking bays. The Bloodhawk Syndicate wasn't just here to loot the station. They were here for something specific. They were here for what the Stellar Wanderer was really carrying, and that meant Marcus's time as a quiet, unremarkable passenger was about to come to an end. Whether the crew was ready for the truth or not, they were about to learn that their silent human companion was far more dangerous than any of them had imagined. The docking clamps released with a mechanical clunk. We're free, Marcus announced, but even as the ship began to pull away from the station, he knew the real battle was just beginning. The first boarding pod breached the ship's hull near the main airlock. Emergency seals kicked in, containing the breach, but the damage was done. Heavily armed pirates began pouring through the opening, their weapons charged and ready. Marcus had positioned himself behind a cargo container with clear sightlines to the airlock. His rifle was unlike anything the crew had seen before, its design sleek and somehow organic looking. When he fired, the energy beam didn't just hit its target, it seemed to anticipate where the target would move. The first pirate through the breach dropped silently, a look of surprise frozen on his alien features. The second managed to raise his weapon before Marcus's next shot took him down. By the time the third pirate realized what was happening, Marcus had already moved to a new position. How is he doing that? Whispered Dr. Sileth, her ethereal form pressed against the wall for protection. Captain Vexani watched in amazement as Marcus seemed to flow between cover points, his movements precise and economical. Those aren't lucky shots. He's placing every beam exactly where he wants it. The pirates quickly realized they were facing unexpected resistance. Their advance slowed as they began using proper tactical formations, but Marcus adapted instantly. He signaled to Krell, pointing to a flanking route the pirates were trying to exploit. The massive Gornish warrior grinned, his granite skin gleaming as he charged. His forearms allowed him to carry both a shield and multiple weapons, and his natural armor turned aside the pirates' return fire. When Krell reached their position, the results were devastating. Now I understand why humans reach the stars, Krell called out between impacts of his massive fists. They don't fight like warriors. They fight like predators. Zektar had taken position near the secondary access, his reptilian reflexes allowing him to strike with lightning speed when pirates tried to outflank their position. His earlier mockery of Marcus was forgotten as he watched the human coordinate their defense with tactical brilliance. Behind you. Zektar called out, spotting movement from an air vent. Marcus spun without hesitation, his rifle tracking smoothly to the new threat. The shot was impossible, a ricochet off two bulkheads that caught the hidden pirate perfectly. The crew stared in stunned silence. Lucky ricochet, Dr. Silas said weakly. That wasn't luck, Captain Vexani replied grimly. He calculated that shot. The battle was turning in their favor, but Marcus knew it was temporary. These pirates were just the first wave, designed to test their defenses and gather intelligence. The real assault would come next. His hidden communicator buzzed. Ghost, we're reading heavy fighting aboard your vessel. What's your status? First wave repelled, Marcus replied quietly, reloading his weapon. But they've seen enough. They know we have real military capability now. Does that compromise the mission? Marcus looked around at the crew. They were staring at him with a mixture of respect, fear, and curiosity that made his decision simple. Mission parameters have changed. The crew needs to know the truth. Ghost, negative. Maintain your cover. Too late for that, Marcus said, then cut the communication. He turned to face the crew fully, letting them see him without the mask of the quiet passenger. My real name is Marcus Chun, but most of you probably know me by my operational designation. Captain Vexani's 6 eyes widened as understanding dawned. The Reaper. The name hit the crew like a physical blow. The Reaper was a legend throughout known space, a human operative whose missions had prevented 3 major wars and eliminated countless threats to galactic stability. Some species whispered that he wasn't even human anymore, that he was some kind of advanced weapon given flesh. That's impossible, Zektar breathed. The Reaper is a myth, a story told to frighten criminals. The criminals certainly hope so, Marcus replied dryly. He gestured to the bodies of the fallen pirates. But as you can see, some stories are more real than others. Dr. Silas' form flickered with excitement. The neural enhancement rumors. Are they true? Can you actually predict opponent movements? Enhanced pattern recognition and tactical processing, Marcus confirmed. Experimental technology that's still classified. It's part of why this cargo is so important. The same principles that enhanced my abilities are built into those shield generators. Another impact shook the ship. Through the viewport, they could see a much larger boarding craft approaching. This one was heavily armored and bristled with cutting equipment designed to breach even military hulls. That's a Bloodhawk assault transport, Captain Vexani identified grimly. They can put 50 armed boarders onto our ship. 63, Marcus corrected automatically. Standard Bloodhawk complement for heavy assault operations. The crew looked at him with new understanding. This wasn't just knowledge, it was intelligence gathered through direct experience. Krell cracked his massive knuckles. Reaper or not, 63 against 7 isn't good odds? It would be, Marcus said calmly, if we were fighting them here. He moved to the cargo bay's main control panel and began entering commands. But we're not going to wait for them to come to us. We're going to take the fight to them. The ship's artificial gravity began fluctuating as Marcus rerouted power systems. Emergency airlocks sealed throughout the vessel, and the main cargo bay began depressurizing in a controlled sequence. What are you doing? Dr. Syleth asked, her ethereal form brightening with concern. Something the pirates won't expect, Marcus replied. They've studied human tactics for months, trying to predict how I'll respond to assault. But they've made one critical mistake. He activated a hidden panel in his equipment case, revealing a sleek suit of armor that seemed to absorb light. As he began putting it on, the transformation was remarkable. The quiet passenger disappeared entirely, replaced by something that looked like death-given form. They assume I'll fight like a human, Marcus continued, his voice now carrying electronic modulation from the suit's systems. But I was trained by the best tacticians in the galaxy, and today I'm going to fight like them. The assault transport docked with a heavy clang. Cutting torches began working on the hull, their bright flames visible through the transparent sections of the bay. What do you need us to do? Captain Vexani asked. Her warrior pride had fully awakened, and she was ready to follow this legendary figure into battle. Marcus checked his weapons one final time. Stay alive. Protect the cargo. And when backup arrives, make sure they know the situation. Where will you be? Zektar asked. Marcus smiled, and the expression was visible even through his armor's faceplate. I'll be reminding the Bloodhawk Syndicate why they should have left us alone. The cutting torches completed their work. In moments, heavily armed pirates would pour through the breach, expecting to find a cargo ship's crew cowering in terror. Instead, they were about to face the most dangerous human alive. The Reaper was done hiding. The Stellar Wanderer had barely cleared Nexus Station when the pursuit began. 3 fast attack ships broke away from the main pirate fleet, their sleek hulls cutting through space with predatory grace. Captain Vexania's 6 eyes tracked their movement on the tactical display, her purple skin pale with stress. They're gaining, reported the navigation officer from the bridge. Our cargo load is slowing us down. Jettison non-essential cargo, Vexani ordered. Captain, Marcus said quietly from his position near the viewport. That won't help. All eyes turned to him. In the stress of their escape, the crew had momentarily forgotten their suspicions about the quiet human. Now those questions returned with new urgency. What do you mean? Vexani demanded. Marcus pointed to the tactical display. Look at their formation. Those aren't random pirates chasing an opportunity. They're flying in a military search pattern, designed to prevent escape rather than maximize speed. They want something specific from this ship. Zektar's scales flashed angry red. How does a cargo handler know military formations? Before Marcus could answer, the ship shook violently as energy blasts struck their rear shields. The pursuing pirates had come within weapons range, but instead of firing to destroy, they were using precise shots to disable the engines? "They're trying to cripple us, not kill us," observed Dr. Sileth, her ethereal form flickering with the ship's emergency lighting. "Which confirms what I suspected," Marcus said grimly. He moved to the cargo manifest terminal and began entering commands with rapid precision. "Someone told them exactly what we're carrying, and it's not the trade goods listed in our official records." Captain Vexania's warrior instincts finally overrode her preconceptions. She stepped closer to Marcus, her voice low and dangerous. "Start talking, human. Who are you, and what do you know about our cargo?" Marcus looked up from the terminal, meeting her six-eyed stare without flinching. For the first time since joining the crew, his expression held no trace of the mild, unremarkable passenger he had pretended to be. Instead, there was something cold and calculating in his dark eyes. "My name is Marcus Chun," he said simply. "But in some circles, I'm known by a different name." Another blast rocked the ship, stronger this time. The pirates were getting bolder, confident that their prey couldn't escape. "We don't have time for riddles," Krell rumbled. His granite-like skin cracked with stress lines. Marcus returned to the terminal, his fingers flying over the controls. "According to your manifest, this ship is carrying agricultural equipment, raw minerals and medical supplies bound for the Outer Rim colonies. Standard trade goods with a total value of maybe 2 million credits." He paused, pulling up a hidden file that made several crew members gasp. "According to the real manifest, we're carrying something else entirely. Something worth enough to buy a small fleet?" The display showed technical schematics that none of them recognized, but the classification levels were unmistakable. "Military secrets of the highest order. Prototype weapon technology," Marcus explained quietly. "Specifically, the plans and key components for a new type of shield generator that could revolutionize space warfare. The kind of technology that could shift the balance of power between entire civilizations." Dr. Silas' form brightened with understanding. "That's why they want us alive. They need the encryption codes, the authentication protocols. None of it works without proper access. And they need someone who knows how to use it," Marcus added. His eyes moved across the crew, seeing the realization dawning on their faces. "Someone like me?" The ship shuddered again, and this time the lights flickered ominously. The engineering officer's voice crackled over the intercom. "Shields down to 30%. We can't take much more of this." Captain Visania's training kicked in. Whatever questions she had about Marcus's identity, right now he was the only one who seemed to understand their situation. "What do you recommend?" "We fight," Marcus said simply. "But not the way you're thinking." He moved to his secured case, the one he'd guarded so carefully throughout the voyage. The crew watched in stunned silence as he revealed its true contents. Advanced weaponry, communication equipment, and tactical gear that belonged to no ordinary passenger. On part of a joint intelligence operation, Marcus explained as he quickly assembled what looked like a compact but sophisticated rifle. Multiple species working together to prevent this technology from falling into the wrong hands. The Bloodhawk Syndicate has been hunting these plans for months. Zektar's forked tongue flicked out nervously. "You're saying you're some kind of spy?" "Something like that." Marcus activated a communication device that had been disguised as a simple data pad. "But my backup isn't scheduled to arrive for another 2 hours. Until then, we're on our own." The pursuing ships fired again, and this time the blast knocked out the artificial gravity in the cargo bay. The crew found themselves floating, struggling to maintain orientation as emergency lights cast eerie shadows. "Can't we just give them what they want?" asked one of the younger crew members, a Kixian whose butterfly wings fluttered with panic. "No," Marcus said firmly, using handholds to position himself near the viewport. "Because what they want isn't just the technology. They want everyone who's seen it. dead or alive, depending on how useful they think you might be. As if to prove his point, one of the pirate ships moved into a flanking position. Through the transparent aluminum, the crew could see boarding pods being prepared for launch. They're going to try to take the ship, Captain Vexani realized. Marcus nodded grimly. Which means we're about to find out just how good you all are in a real fight. He checked his weapons with practiced efficiency, then looked around at the crew. These beings had mocked him, dismissed him as weak and useless. But now their lives depended on skills they didn't even know he possessed. I need to know right now, he said, his voice carrying an authority that none of them had heard before. Are you warriors, or are you just pretending to be? The question hung in the air as the ship shook under another barrage. Outside, the boarding pods were launching, carrying pirates armed with military-grade weapons and the kind of ruthless determination that came from knowing exactly what they were after. Captain Vexani was the first to answer, her 6 eyes blazing with the pride of her warrior caste. We are Zaltharian Navy. We do not surrender. Krell's massive fists clenched with determination. Gornish do not run from battle. Even Zektar, despite his earlier mockery, drew himself up with reptilian pride. Vorthek have fought for 1,000 years. We will not shame our ancestors today. Marcus smiled, and for the first time, the crew saw something in his expression that made them understand why their enemies might fear him. It wasn't the gentle amusement of the quiet passenger they thought they knew. It was something far more dangerous. Good, he said softly. Because they're about to learn what happens when you threaten humans and their allies. The boarding pods struck the hull with metallic clangs that echoed through the ship. In moments, the pirates would cut through the airlocks and the real battle would begin. But now the crew of the Stellar Wanderer was ready for them, led by a human whose true name was whispered in fear across half the galaxy. Marcus moved through the ship's maintenance corridors with deadly grace. His armor systems mapped every passage, every junction, every potential ambush point. The pirates had breached the cargo bay as expected, but they would find it empty except for the crew's defensive positions. Meanwhile, the Reaper was hunting. The first group of boarders never saw him coming. They were advancing through the main corridor, confident in their superior numbers, when Marcus dropped from an overhead maintenance shaft. His enhanced reflexes and pattern recognition made the fight impossibly one-sided. The pirates' advanced weapons meant nothing when their wielders couldn't track their target. Marcus moved like liquid shadow, each movement precise and economical. When the last pirate fell, he had already identified the next group's location through their radio chatter. In the cargo bay, the crew watched the ship's internal monitors in amazement. He's not fighting them, Dr. Silith whispered, her ethereal form pulsing with fascination. He's dismantling them. Captain Vexani studied the tactical display showing the pirates' positions. Red dots representing hostile forces were disappearing one by one, systematically eliminated as Marcus worked his way through the ship. Look at the pattern, she said admiringly. He's not just killing them randomly. He's cutting off their command structure, isolating their groups, forcing them to fight on his terms. Zektar's scales had shifted to a deep purple, the Vorthek equivalent of profound respect. I have fought in 12 major battles. I have never seen anything like this. Krell nodded grimly. Now I understand why the stories spoke of him with fear. This is not just enhanced human. This is apex predator. On the assault transport, Commander Rickstar of the Bloodhawk Syndicate watched his tactical display with growing alarm. His boarding parties were supposed to secure the ship within minutes. Instead, they were being systematically destroyed by what appeared to be a single defender. Sir, his communications officer reported nervously, we've lost contact with assault teams 3, 7, and 12. The others are requesting immediate extraction. Rickstar's 4 eyes blazed with fury. The Bloodhawk Syndicate had built its reputation on overwhelming force and brutality. To be stopped by one defender was not just a tactical failure, it was humiliation. Deploy the heavy assault units, he ordered, and activate the neural scramblers. If this is really the Reaper, his enhanced abilities depend on clear neural pathways. The neural scramblers were illegal technology, banned by every civilized government in the galaxy. They attacked the nervous systems of enhanced beings, turning their own augmentations against them. The devices were cruel, causing excruciating pain before rendering their targets helpless. Marcus felt the scramblers activate. As soon as the new assault teams deployed, waves of agony shot through his enhanced neural pathways, threatening to shut down his tactical systems. For a normal enhanced operative, it would have meant death or capture, but Marcus had trained for this possibility. Gritting his teeth against the pain, he activated backup protocols that isolated his biological systems from his technological enhancements. It reduced his effectiveness, but it kept him functional. "Clever," he said quietly into his communicator, "but not clever enough." Without his enhanced pattern recognition, Marcus had to rely on more traditional skills. Fortunately, he had learned from the best teachers the galaxy had to offer: Zeltharian tactical doctrine, Gornish assault techniques, Vorthak stealth methods. He had studied and mastered them all. The heavy assault team that breached the engineering section found themselves facing an opponent who fought like their own species. Greatest warriors. But with the unpredictability of human creativity, Marcus used a Vorthak ambush technique to take down their point man, then switched to Gornish heavy assault methods to break their formation. When they tried to corner him, he employed Zeltharian tactical withdrawal, only to circle back using human guerrilla methods they had never encountered. Status report. Commander Rickstar demanded as more of his forces went silent. "Unknown, sir," his tactical officer replied weakly. "The defender appears to be ... adapting. Every time our forces adjust tactics, he changes his approach entirely." "That's impossible. No single being can master that many different combat styles." But even as he said it, Rickstar was beginning to understand what they were really facing. The Reaper wasn't just an enhanced human. He was the culmination of decades of interspecies military cooperation, trained by the finest warriors from dozens of different cultures. In the cargo bay, the crew watched their internal sensors with growing amazement as the remaining pirates were systematically eliminated. "He's not just using human tactics anymore," Captain Vexani observed. "That last maneuver was pure Zeltharian flanking doctrine. And that stealth approach was Vorthak military technique," Zektar added with professional appreciation. "But no outsider should know our classified methods?" Dr. Silas' form brightened with understanding. "Unless he was trained by Vorthak masters themselves. How many species taught him their arts?" The question was answered when Marcus's voice came over the ship's communication system, speaking in perfect military Zeltharian. "Captain Vexani, this is Chun. The ship is secure, but we have a bigger problem." He switched to the ship's common tongue, his words carrying grim certainty. "The assault transport is pulling back to minimum safe distance. They're preparing to use heavy weapons rather than risk more boarding parties." "They can't destroy us," Captain Vexani replied. "They need the cargo intact." "They only need the encryption codes," Marcus corrected. "And they've realized there's an easier way to get them." On the assault transport's bridge, Commander Rickstar made his final calculation. The legendary Reaper was aboard that cargo ship, but even legends could be broken. "Charge the pain amplifiers," he ordered. "Target the entire ship. We'll break every living being aboard until someone gives us what we need." Pain amplifiers were another piece of banned technology, devices that could cause unbearable suffering without physical damage. They were considered a war crime by every civilized species. But the Bloodhawk Syndicate had never worried about such distinctions. Marcus felt the targeting sensors lock onto the ship and knew immediately what was coming. There wasn't time to explain, only to act. "Everyone listen carefully," he said over the ship's intercom, his voice calm despite the approaching torture. "In about 30 seconds, you're going to experience pain like nothing you've ever imagined. It won't kill you, but you'll wish it would." Dr. Silas' form flickered with alarm. "Is there anything we can do?" "Yes," Marcus replied. "Remember that no matter how much it hurts, you are still warriors. You are still crew of the Stellar Wanderer. And you do not break." The pain amplifiers fired, sending waves of artificial agony through every nerve ending on the ship. The crew screamed, their enhanced biology making the experience even worse than it would have been for baseline beings. But they did not break, and in the depths of the ship, Marcus Chen the Reaper began planning his final move. The pain amplifiers cycled through their maximum intensity for 12 minutes before Commander Rickstar finally shut them down. He expected to hear surrender offers, pleas for mercy, or at least demands for negotiation. Instead, the communication channel remained silent. "Sir," his communications officer reported with confusion, "we're receiving no response from the cargo vessel." "Try again. They must be ready to negotiate by now." But when Rickstar opened a channel to the Stellar Wanderer, the voice that answered was calm, steady, and completely unbroken. "This is Marcus Chun aboard the cargo vessel," the human said politely. "I believe you wanted to talk?" The commander's 4 eyes widened in disbelief. "Impossible. The pain amplifiers were at maximum intensity. No being can withstand that level of neural torture." "You're right," Marcus replied. "No single being can. But we're not single beings anymore. We're a crew." In the cargo bay, the aftermath of the torture had done something unexpected. The shared experience of unbearable pain, endured together without surrender, had forged bonds between species that had previously viewed each other with suspicion or outright disdain. Captain Vexani looked around at her crew with new understanding. "We survived that together." "More than survived," Krell rumbled, his voice filled with respect. "We proved we are truly united." Zektar's scales had shifted to patterns that indicated deep honor bonds among Vorthak warriors. "I have fought beside my own species mates and not felt such unity." Dr. Sileth's ethereal form was brighter than it had been in years. "The pain should have broken our individual wills. Instead, it welded them together." Marcus had counted on this possibility. Human psychology was built around pack bonding, the ability to form fierce loyalties under extreme stress. But he had learned something important about alien psychology during their ordeal under the right circumstances. Other species could experience the same phenomenon. "Commander Rickstar," Marcus continued over the open channel, "you've made several mistakes today. You underestimated my crew. You underestimated human resilience. But your biggest mistake was giving us time to work together." "You're bluffing," Rickstar snarled. "You're trapped in a damaged cargo vessel with no weapons and no backup." "Actually," Marcus said conversationally, "I do have backup. It arrived about 3 minutes ago." Commander Rickstar spun to check his long-range sensors, just in time to see hyperspace ruptures opening around his position. Military vessels from 5 different species emerged simultaneously: human alliance cruisers, Zeltharian battlewings, Gornish assault ships, Vorthak stealth destroyers, and ethereal support vessels. "Joint fleet operations," came a new voice over the communication channel, speaking with the authority of Unified Galactic Command. "This is Admiral Santos aboard the Dreadnought Unity. Bloodhawk vessels, you are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender immediately." Rickstar's tactical display showed the hopelessness of his situation. The joint fleet had positioned themselves with mathematical precision, cutting off every escape route. More importantly, the ships were working in perfect coordination despite belonging to different species with traditionally incompatible military doctrines. "How?" he whispered. Marcus's voice answered, carrying a note of satisfaction. "You wanted to know what makes humans special in the galaxy, Commander. It's not our strength or speed or natural weapons. It's our ability to bring others together, to find common ground between species that have been enemies for centuries." Captain Vexani activated her own communicator, adding her voice to the channel. "This is Captain Vexani of the cargo vessel Stellar Wanderer. We stand with our human crew member." One by one, the other crew members added their voices, each speaking in their own language but translating for the universal channel. "Gornish warrior clan acknowledges human pack leader," Krell declared formally. "Vorthak honor bonds extend to Nest brother Marcus," Zektar announced using ritual phrases that carried deep cultural significance. "Ethereal collective embraces human spirit friend." Dr. Sileth said in her musical tongue. Commander Rickstar listened to the declarations with growing understanding. He had spent months planning this operation, studying human psychology and tactics. But he had made a fundamental error. He had seen humans as isolated beings to be defeated individually. He had never considered what would happen when humans formed genuine bonds with other species. The joint fleet represents something new, Marcus explained over the channel. Not just alliance of convenience, but genuine unity. Species working together because they've learned to respect each other's strengths. Admiral Santos's voice cut through the discussion with military efficiency. Bloodhawk Commander, your assault transport is powered down and prepared for boarding. Your smaller vessels are disabled. This is your final opportunity to surrender. Rickstar looked around his bridge at his crew. They were hardened criminals from a dozen different species, united only by greed and the Bloodhawk Syndicate's brutal discipline. Facing them was something they had never encountered before: true interspecies cooperation forged through shared struggle. We surrender, he said quietly. As the joint fleet moved into secure the pirate vessels, Marcus finally allowed himself to relax. His armor retracted into its compact form, and once again he looked like a quiet human passenger rather than the galaxy's most dangerous operative. The crew of the Stellar Wanderer gathered around him, their earlier prejudices completely forgotten. So what happens now? Captain Vexani asked. Marcus smiled, the expression genuine for the first time since they had met. Now we deliver our cargo. The shield generator technology will be shared equally among all allied species, just as planned. And the Reaper? Dr. Sileth asked curiously. The Reaper was created to fight when different species couldn't trust each other enough to work together, Marcus replied. But that galaxy is changing. Soon, hopefully, such extreme measures won't be necessary. Zektar's scales shifted to colors indicating deep curiosity. Will you continue traveling with cargo crews? For now, Marcus said. There's still much work to do, building understanding between species. And I've learned something important from all of you. He gestured around the group, his expression serious but warm. Humans aren't special because we're stronger or smarter than other species. We're special because we have the ability to see potential in others that they might not even see in themselves. Krell's massive frame shook with what might have been laughter. Is that why you never corrected us when we called humans weak? You needed to discover your own strength first, Marcus replied. All I did was provide the opportunity. Captain Vexani looked at her crew beings from 5 different species, who had started the voyage with barely concealed contempt for each other. Now they stood together as genuine comrades forged through shared trial. Perhaps, she said thoughtfully, this is what the galaxy truly needs. Not just peace treaties and trade agreements, but real understanding between peoples. As the Stellar Wanderer prepared to complete its journey, Marcus Chun returned to his position by the viewport. But now he wasn't the silent, ignored passenger he had been. He was surrounded by friends who had learned that true strength came not from individual power, but from the bonds that could be forged between different species willing to stand together. The human who had been mocked for his apparent weakness had taught an entire crew that the greatest strength in the galaxy was the courage to trust, to sacrifice for others, and to find unity even in the face of overwhelming odds. In the end, that was what made humans truly special among the stars. Not their legendary warriors or advanced technology, but their unshakable belief that any being from any species could become family if given the chance. The Reaper's mission was complete. But Marcus Ching's real work building bridges between the stars would continue for as long as there were new worlds to explore and new friends to discover among them.